Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. I'm so glad you're with us wherever you are around the world. We're so grateful to see you joining us at goodlifetelevision.org on the social media platforms. It's fantastic. We're spreading goodness, good people, good stories. We've got another one today. I'm so grateful. You can always find the long form interviews at goodlifetelevision.org, as well as what we call power clips. We kind of break those up into some of the great moments, and we also push those out on social media. So follow us, join us, tell a friend. We're grateful to have you with us. I'm so glad to welcome my guest today. Barry Zegel is with me. Barry, welcome.
Thank you.
I want to tell just a little bit about you, Barry, before we start. You've been in television. I was telling him before we came on, it's a little intimidating to have somebody who's been in TV for as long and as successfully as Barry has. But Barry's had a really impactful career with his most recently senior vice president of studio operations at Television City Studios in Hollywood, which was formerly CBS Television City. Barry served 13 years as a senior VP and general manager at CBS Television City. They produce things like Dancing with the Stars and American Idol and The Price is Right, The Late Late Show, a few household names. Barry's won 2 Emmy Awards, specifically for his work in Olympic sports coverage with CBS. And he's had a long and distinguished and impactful career. I could go on and on, but I'll give you bits and pieces as we go here. But I actually wanted to start with Barry with just where you grew up. What do you remember growing up? What was it like? Where were you? What are your memories?
I grew up in southern New Jersey on an island called Avalon. Primarily, there were a couple other places we lived, but that's really where we grew up. And it's a great place to grow up, but not a place to stay there and work, because it's really just a resort community. But I always had this interest in technology and how things worked. And I think that kind of triggered my interest in trying to understand how the pictures were being made that came out of TV.
Yeah. Well, and so you started at WCAUTV in Philadelphia working summers.
Yeah.
So you walk in there, what are you, an 18-year-old kid, or are you?
Yeah. We
What
knew a
happened?
friend who worked there, and I did some interviews, and I was working as director of operations for the educational facility at my university, the University of South Carolina. And so they took me on as a summer technician, and I did that for 3 summers. And that at that point, that station was owned by the CBS Television Network. And therefore, when I graduated college, I applied to the engineering department in New York and joined CBS full time after college.
And then you stayed a while.
I feel like I've had 30 different jobs, but they were all at CBS. And every time I'd think about, well, maybe I should be looking, another kind of amazing opportunity would show up. And so I was blessed to get to work in both the engineering and operations area, news, a lot of sports, and then I had my choice of assignment, came out for the entertainment side, and I have been out here for 27 years doing entertainment. So it just all worked to stay at the same company, and it's I think it's rare these days.
Yeah. Wow. What are some of your memories? I want to get into, in a minute, I want to get into some of the Olympic stuff and and a lot of stuff you've done with technology, but what are some of your favorite memories going back with CBS all those years in New York? What were some of the highlights?
Boy, many bunch of stuff comes to mind. Certainly working on 60 Minutes for 7 years. That was kind of, I always refer to broadcast boot camp. It's a very tough environment and very demanding environment, but very rewarding too. And when you're dealing with a show of that kind of magnitude and interest, that one was kind of interesting. One thing I was thinking about this morning, and it might kind of apply to your group. After 9/11, there was a move to do something to help. And I was asked to help put together a program that we call Tribute to Heroes. And it was a program where we invited every stars, worked with George Clooney on this, putting this together, and a bunch of other folks. And it ended up airing on every single network, every single cable channel simultaneously. We had just every star, A-list star you can imagine, just showed up. We said, show up without your entourage. This is, a charity event. And I mean, who showed up, and we raised over $300 million. So,
Oh my goodness. Wow.
and just to be able to put that together on a worldwide basis, we did it in about 4 days. And it was kind of one of those, you kind of bring all your skill set together, and it was just something great. So it kind of makes up for maybe some of the not so great TV we do along the way. So anyhow, that one is just an incredible memory. That we just had the right place to do it. We did it on our stages at Television City, and raised a lot of money. So that's
Wow.
a good memory. So
That's fantastic. So you did 60 Minutes for 7 years.
yeah, I worked at technically supporting 60 Minutes for 7 years. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I worked with the original team. So most of them aren't around, but
Take us back to 1994, the Lillehammer Olympics. I read that at the time was being billed as the most watched television event in history.
yeah, if you recall, that's the one that had Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding, and the whole. We are in the middle of Norway, almost at the Arctic Circle, just trying to get ready for the Olympics, and we inherit the biggest news story in the world even before we go on the air with the Olympics. It had just gotten to be such an amazingly bizarre story of the attack, and hitting Nancy Kerrigan's knee. You probably remember that.
Right. Yes.
Thing. So we had this hook going in, and then it was one of those Olympics that just worked. We had great stories, we had great weather. The Norwegians were spectacular hosts, and the ratings were through the roof. And thankfully, we had no technical problems essentially at all. It's an awesome task to take on the Olympics. You're kind of doing 6 Super Bowls simultaneously in a little country.
Wow.
A great challenge, and it worked out great. And as you said, it ended up being the most watched event in the history of television. So
amazing. Is that kind of, it feels like you're being in the technical side behind the camera, that part of the challenge might be that, it's like the Secret Service. You only get recognized if there's a mistake, or you only get, you know what I'm saying? Like,
well, actually, my whole interest and my whole career has been very simply, I love to use technology to help storytelling process. And there's always been kind of 2 groups of people. There's been, super techie engineers that are brilliant and work on things, and then creative people that don't understand the technology, but they wouldn't know what they want. I wanted to be that person in between, where I could bridge the technology with the storytelling process and the creative people. So my involvement has always been on the creative side, working on new technologies to help storytelling. And we did a lot of those on the Olympics. Some of these now are, we take for granted, but things like rail cam, that we had a camera run along next to the speed skaters and get a feel of the speed of how fast these speed skaters are going. In Norway, there were problems with shadows because you were very up near the Arctic, and there weren't a lot of shadows in depth to downhill. And we were trying to get a feel for how do you get a feel for how fast a skier is going down the hill. So we built up a thing we called coming going cam, and they were cameras mounted on the poles that the skier would go right past the camera. You'd see him coming and going away, and you could get a feel for the speed of that. So yes, part of it is, everything has to work. And but another part of it is, working closely with creative people to tie these technologies together and help storytelling.
Yeah. And there's such power in that storytelling, and there's such power in this medium. I mean, speaking of technology, I know you've had a major interest in technology through the years, and you've developed a lot of things, but I mean, weren't you part of kind of bringing some of CBS's content to HD?
Absolutely. I mean, it was a chicken or the egg situation. Manufacturers wanted to sell high definition television, but there was no content, and we didn't have money to create content because there was no way to send it to anybody, because nobody. So we figured out ways to a lot of stuff was protected for the new aspect ratio that we could transfer. We just started coming up with creative ways of getting funding and develop the technology to get to do things in high def. And so we kind of solved that issue, that supply issue, and got this digital form. And thank goodness we considered it a break the business kind of thing, because CDs and DVDs were coming out, and so people were getting used to that kind of quality. And I was concerned that if we don't match that quality over the air, we're going to be at a horribly competitive disadvantage.
Right.
So thankfully, now we just call it television, but at that point, getting to high def and getting the Hollywood community over to high def, and everybody trying to not make a ton of money on it initially, was a great challenge, because at first everybody was going to make more money. Hair and makeup said, it's more expensive to do high def makeup. Everybody was kind of getting in line, and we all said, look, we all got to pitch in, because this is the future for our industry. So we got there. And of course, now we're doing the next round with high dynamic range and 4K and 8K and a lot of other technologies. So this will be
that was going to be my next question, is kind of what do you see as you look forward? I know you're still doing consulting and doing work, but what do you see as you kind of look out? What's next?
Well, there is a lot of interest in 8K. Frankly, there's some optical concerns of how can the eye really differentiate between 2K and 4K and 8K. But we are seeing with these very bright screens doing this high dynamic range. So the ranges of light to dark, I don't know if you've watched or have high def or high dynamic range on your TVs, but it certainly is making things more and more lifelike and more dimensional. 3D didn't quite take off, but there are these new technologies with more high definition and dynamic range really give more of a feeling of depth than 3D. And anything that we can do to bring people more into the story, I think is great. So those are some of the things coming along.
Wow. You're the founder of the Academy. You've worked, and I didn't mention this at the outset, but you've worked with the Primetime Emmy Academy for over 20 years, I think, and you've served on the Engineering Emmy Awards Committee for 5 years and done a lot of other things. But you were the founder of the Academy's Science and Technology Group.
Yep.
Well, tell us about that group and what that's about.
Well, it's interesting. I've been chairman of the Emmy committee for many years for engineering, and there's actually a separate award ceremony. It's the same Primetime Emmy, but it's a separate award a ceremony that Kirsten Vagnus from Criminal Minds actually hosts every year, and it recognizes engineering and science and technologies that have helped storytelling process. That's all what it's about, and it's so special to these people that seldom get recognized for the amazing work they do, developing code and virtual platforms and just incredible technologies. And this is a way to say, hey, these people are a big part of the storytelling process too. So giving out those Emmy awards, it turned out there really wasn't many of the people who won these Emmy awards could not join the Academy because there was really not a little place for them to go within it. The Academy has many peer groups or stunts and hair and makeup and choreography and directing and all those kinds of things. But the name of it is the television, in television arts and sciences. There really wasn't enough representation of the sciences, in my opinion. And it took about 4 years of petitioning and working with the Academy. And last year, we finally now have a science and technology peer group within the Academy. And so all these people that have been a big part of the storytelling process can now be part of the Academy. And I was just elected governor. So one of the governors of the Academy. So it's been a great involvement.
And you've really enjoyed working with the Academy over the years, haven't you?
It's very rewarding. I mean, I've had the great luck to win a couple Emmys, and I know what that's like. And to be able to work with people and find people that have done great things for our industry and recognize them, it's life-changing for a lot of people, and it's really very rewarding. And now we're working on more education within the academy, and dealing with the new technologies and virtual platforms and things. And so yeah, it's I've enjoyed it very much and continue to.
And talk about your longtime friend Francis Ford Coppola, who I know I've read about that you've done some collaborating with. Talk about that relationship and kind of what I know there's kind of some forward thinking going on there as well, but talk about that.
I've been saying this theme of using technology to help stories, and Francis, that's right where he is. He loves technology. He's just a brilliant guy, obviously, a creative genius. And so we got linked up where he had technical questions about things or wanted to talk about technologies and things. And we got to be collaborators and friends. And I've helped him in many of his projects. And he's actually come and lectured at my university. And it's just been a very, very nice friendship for many, many years. So he's an amazing guy. He's just filled with energy and ideas and brilliant.
What, as you kind of look at the whole, your long and impactful career, and the things must have just evolved incredibly in since you started that as an 18-year-old kid walking on the door. Can you kind of characterize what you've seen happen? I mean, just as a guy who's literally been in the trenches behind the scenes, seeing it all and being heavily involved in the technology part, kind of characterize your experience with this medium, and how it's evolved over the course of decades.
Well, when I was a kid, there were 4 or 5 channels of television, and you watched it when it aired. If you think about that, no DVRs, no VHS. I mean, there was nothing.
Yeah, I was the remote control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You had the pliers on that twisty thing.
Yeah, right.
You had rabbit ears, and I'm kind of dating myself, but I mean, I even remember black and white, but I was pretty young, but certainly, it's just incredible in kind of the short amount of time where we've gone. And certainly that's where the starting point happened. Cable came along, and then we could get some more channels on cable. And of course, every new technology said they were going to obsolete the old technology, and all the networks were going to go away. But that never really happened. It was just a little more variety. News went from shooting film in the trenches to electronic news gathering, where we could really get stuff instantly. It used to be news reporters were on the ground with film and then ran in, and quickly they ran the film through the processor and got it on the air. It was pretty clunky. So when E&G came about and microwave, that we could do live remotes and stuff, it really propelled the news telling process forward, extensively. Technology improved, quality of picture improved, and then the quantum leap forward when we went from analog transmission to digital transmission and could go up to better aspect ratios, high definition, better pictures, better audio, really took it a quantum leap forward. I mean, one of the pushes is we've done, I think, a pretty good job of getting a much better picture to the home, but sound is still this challenge. And, sound bars and things are starting to evolve, doing a better job. We did 5.1, but you ended up having speakers all around the room, which was never well taken generally by spouses. So now putting sound bars that can kind of project sound around the room is starting to tell that. And, the psychoacoustic effect of good sound is always interesting. We've done blind tests where we've shown people shows in maybe mono or stereo and then 5.1, but not telling them what difference is, just saying, what do you notice about this experience when we change? And more often than not, people think the picture looks better. When we increase the quality of sound, they think the picture looks better. And I always thought, okay, they're really linked. If you're making people more immersive into the experience, the whole experience is better. So
wow,
just pushing these things really makes a difference.
Well, that's really interesting. So just we only have a couple minutes left, but what do you had this, like we talked about, a great career, and you're still very active. What kind of gets you up in the morning these days? What are you excited about?
Propelling the science and technology peer group is fun. So that's going on well in the academy. My wife and I are both very involved in the Rotary, and we've done a lot of charity events with the Rotary, which is unrelated to this at all, but
Yeah.
able to do some good things. And I certainly stay in touch with the studios, and I don't know. They always say when you retire, if that's what I am, I don't know if I'm retired, but they always say you're busier than you ever were. And I wake up, I've got Zooms all day long. I got board meetings. So
Yeah.
I'm as busy as I've been, and luckily I can kind of do the stuff I like doing. So it's nice.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I just appreciate you coming on. What a great career. What an interesting journey you've been on, and made a big impact. So we're grateful to meet you and grateful to have you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for all the work the Turner Foundation does. It's great stuff. I've been reading up on it, and
I appreciate it.
Really amazing. So congratulations for that.
Thank you. Great to have you.
Okay.
And we'll see you next time.
Very good. Take care.